Music, hear me now. This is a Soulfyah Productions.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Some of y'all and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. And I see that there's 9 of you here already. I want to thank you all for being up this early. But then again, if you all were up for the Reverend Brother Pastor Deacon Dr. Edward Allen Anderson, then you can be up for me too. So I'm continuing some points about his particular stream. And I'm not going to ask that he blindly agree with me, although I do give him his shout out because he brought this to mind. And really, it's a few things I'm going to catch up on because what I was going to do my next live stream on anyway was tangential or centrally relevant to what the Reverend Brother Pastor Deacon Dr. Edward Allen Anderson discussed. So shouts out to him and to BGS Ibmore and to Dr. Tiger Hassan Johnson. And I'm not saying that the doctor's first name is Tiger. I just nicknamed him that because of how he very intelligently rips up people's false points. I have a tendency to slip up and cuss when I don't mean to. And don't get me started on the others who are even more educated than me and they swear up and down. But they, the BGS Ibmore and Dr. T. Hassan Johnson did their live stream yesterday regarding colorism. And Dr. Johnson rightly pointed out how it is that as men, as black men, you were objectified based on your complexion no matter what. He was absolutely right. This is known. Everybody understands this. As a black man, right off the bat, you are negatively stereotyped in at least one way. And I've talked about this before too. If you are on the paler end of the spectrum, which I am and tend to forget that I am, hence my name, you are then supposedly more intelligent and more romantic, but less of a beast in the bed. And if you're on the opposite end of the spectrum, you're expected to be more criminal, less intelligent, less romantic, more of a beast in the bed, and more of a beast in anything. And the thing is that I don't really like to use the term beast even to describe somebody's expertise, because there was a time we didn't say that. But there's a time we didn't say it in that context, but it has generally been applied to black folks and especially to black males and especially to the most abundantly melanated black males. So I don't use that term beast to say that somebody is an expert at something. I'd rather say that he shines at it. You can understand why. Yep, the next one on the list, ironically, to give a shout out to, just stepped in. The next one I was going to give a shout out to was Kayai Nemo and Goat the JR for a link and a point that they made during Edward's live stream. So Kayai, you pointed out something and then JR found it. And the two of you are witnesses as to what went on. Allie, I think her name is Dunwooder, or I forgot her last name, but her screen name is The Real Femme Sapien. And I mentioned her in my last upload, very last upload, entitled Real Femme Sapien, Average Men and Choosing Better. She live streamed 2 weeks ago, and it's entitled The Blended Family Playbook. Kayai and Goat the JR are the two witnesses that told me that she said that there are childless men who should have to date only single moms. Childless men who should only have to date single moms. There was a man that called in to challenge that notion at 1 hour and 11 minutes in. And she admitted, to his point, that this is not anyone's first choice. And the other women admitted such. But see, this shows that they know what they're doing. And he went further to show this because he asked them, do you want your sons, while childless, to be matched up with single moms? Now, I am technically a single dad in that I'm not with them, either of the two mothers of either of my children. There are reasons it didn't work out, but I can promise you this. Even when I broke up, I did not drive anybody away. Absolutely never did. And one thing that my children are going to understand the older they get is that I did not drive any of them away, any of their mothers away. And I'm not mean to any of their mothers now. My own mother said that apparently I suck at picking girlfriends and wives, but I'm great at picking good mothers for her grandkids. So when this man called in to challenge the notion, Allie decided to say that he was rude, and she just cut him off. Dropped him. Real Femme Sapien, let me explain something to you. The man was not rude to you personally, but he challenged a point. He was right to do it. Your point is wrong. Childless men should not be with single mothers. Hands down. If he's got a neck beard, and you don't sit up and call men betas and incels if you're going to be on, if you're on behalf of men getting any sort of fair treatment. And here's why. Number one, alpha and beta. These terms are not very fair to anybody. And I tell men that use these terms. These terms aren't fair to men or women. But you, as a lady, even if you think you mean well, when you use these terms, you should only be using them to describe how the market ranks men, not to actually rank men, because the two zoologists that studied wolves and came up with these notions from which we get the terms alpha and beta right now with regards to organisms and not just Greek letters of the alphabet, both of them observed wolves in the wild after they observed them in captivity, and both of them came to the same two conclusions. In the wild, the mistaken conclusion. I'm sorry, in captivity, the mistaken conclusion. In the wild, the conclusion both of them stayed on afterwards. Both of them came to the conclusion that in the wild, the alphas were merely the parents and the betas were just their cubs. These were just family units. The dominant male wasn't dominant because he was just so much more of a male. It was because he was their father. And the same for the dominant female. That's why they were the only breeding pair. And when the cubs actually became adults, they moved on out and they would join other packs or start their packs, form a breeding pair. See, that's what's not talked about. So for one, calling men beta is problematic because you don't seem to understand the proper context of these terms anyway. Secondly, calling a man an incel, well, I'm not going to sit up and say that you should be an SLUT just so that there wouldn't be men that are incels. But what I would sit up and tell you, real femme sapien, Ali, is that until you're going to tell women to change their standards, to be less financial and more within men's control, fuck the shuck up. Don't tell men that some of them should have to settle, because see, in order for no man to be the kind of man that should have to settle for this, being childless and only seen as fit to raise other men's kids, that's very easy. See, all you got to do, and I mean you collectively, is tell your sons, nephews, younger brothers, grandsons, everything you don't want regular normal men to know about you and what you want. In other words, give up the mother cuss word secrets. And do it while these young male relatives of yours are young, when they're boys, when they're in elementary school. Tell them the TV is going to start lying to you. Disney movies are going to lie to you. Nickelodeon kids and teen movies will lie to you. The good guy's not going to win in the end when it comes to mating. At least then they can make a choice. I'm going to take the moral route, and I might be by myself, because women's, especially Western women's, interest in men and standards are immoral. Because let's be honest, you can take a guy that has everything women want, but he's also very moral, very honest, just an all-around good guy and generous, and women will decide they don't want him either. I knew a guy like that. He just got married. He's 2 years older than me. Just got married for a second time. First time he got married was in our early 20s, and she cheated on him. I want you all to stop and think. I want you all to stop and think for a second. How many of you in the chat, if you listen to Walaikum Salam, Jawad, greetings, peasant to legend, greetings, peace. I'm sorry, A. Wilson's ghost, and peace, CJ. All of y'all in the chat right now, go ahead and type in a 1 if you remember the group Shy. S-H-A-Y is how they spelled their name. If you remember the singing group Shy from the 90s. Go ahead and type a 1 if you remember. As a matter of fact, in case some of you don't remember, what I might do is I may go ahead and play a little clip of theirs. Let me see if I can do that. Press a 1 if you remember that group. And just in case you may not, I'll play a little bit of one of their songs, just for you to identify. Fair use, fair use. Okay, so I got 2 1s. All right, what's going on, Def Rocker? So, can you all hear that music? Type in a 1 if you can hear it and a 0 if you cannot. All right. I don't think you all can hear it. I'm playing it in a different browser. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this into the same browser that I'm using for StreamYard, or as they say in my hometown, ScreamYard. And as soon as this ad goes off, because it's going to come on, oh, there it is, directly. Now, I'm not promoting music, even though I use it, but can you all hear it? Brings back memories. How about now? Can you hear it? Yeah. Now, put a black fist in the comments if it brings back. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Put a 1 in the comments if it brings back memories for those of you that do hear this. Okay. Now, if you're, let's see, this one was pretty popular back in 91, 92. No, I'm sorry. I apologize. About 92 and 93. I think this is when it was popular. Now, there's one group singer in that group. His name is Garfield Bright, and you can probably look up images of him. My friend that got married just a few weeks ago, about a week ago, for the second time in his life, and the first one cheated, looks like Garfield Bright. Kind of like Chris Williams, too, because the two of them have a similar appearance. When someone like Real Femme Sapien gets up and says this stuff, and I want to thank Kaya again for explaining the reason that she said it. I'm not going to forgive Real Femme Sapien or anybody else for saying this, but I do appreciate you telling us why. Since a lot of men are celibate, she does think that they've got more bargaining power, and men should just have to, childless men should just have to settle for single moms. If you got so many men that aren't doing anything and so many women beyond a certain age that are single moms, then who the hell are these fathers? Because it seems to me like every single mom you take in has kids who have siblings they don't even know exist, let alone know them, because these same few dudes are going and skeeting and squirting and shooting up some other clubs. What's happening, Sir Anthony? That's what we see going on here. So understand this. I've already said that when a woman is on our side, I'm going to be on her side because that's fair. But she got to be on our side 200%. I'm one-sided for a reason, and I'm one-sided because we do have ladies that come out and they decide where they're going to try to be fair, but they can't quite be fair, and they become chameleons. I got some people in my audience that say, no, all of them are chameleons. Now, I understand they all got interests that are theirs, just like we men all have interests that are ours. I mean, hell, if I said, hey, men, how many of y'all would like some quickies without all the foreplay? Most guys would raise their hand. Not all the time, but this is something that's in our interest. And that's cool. What's happening, Jaquan? Well, see, the thing is, they got things that are in their interest, but we sit up and we say, okay, well, when it comes to any of our interests, we taper them and temper them and meet the ladies at least halfway, or we drop our interest. When it comes to anything that's theirs in the West, we're seeing that even some of these chameleons will not meet men halfway. And that's why I say be one-sided. F that halfway stuff. We are the boss. We pay the cost. But then we are the boss. The bill comes to us. That's fine. We take care of them, but we call the shots. We listen to them. We take their input because women aren't stupid. They're not kids. They do know things. They're fully capable of an adult intellect. We see that in the workplace. We all got some really good lady co-workers. But when it comes to men, they decide they're going to be stupid. What's the reason for that? If they have an adult intellect naturally when they reach adulthood, then why would they collectively decide to be stupid when it comes to men and men's interests? And we're simple creatures because it's war. And that's why I said it's war. It's not because I hate them. What reason does a straight man have to hate women unless they give it to him? And I still don't hate women, black or otherwise. But it doesn't mean I'm gonna sit up here and not admit it is mother cuss word war, and it is one-sided. And that's why I say be one-sided. It's war on their part. And that's exactly what Real Femme Sapiens showed. Even when she decided, well, I'm gonna call women to account. Okay, Femme Sapien. Now I get it. I hope you hear this one day, Femme Sapien, because I'm telling you straight like this. You got too good of a deal for yourself. For one, the time for you to understand what you understand is when you're younger. You understood this at a fairly decently young age. That's good. But you still got this idea in mind that if women act a certain way, that they're going to get, or they are entitled to get, the highly successful, high-value man. There's no entitlement for that. It doesn't exist. It's not your fault. It's not any woman's fault. It's not because of anything wrong with the women. That's the way God set up the planet. Everything that's valuable is also rare. Or we think it's rare and it's not. Diamonds are an example of the second category, the latter. We think diamonds are rare, but they're not. However, they're valuable because nobody knows how common they are. That's just how that works. Everything else is rare. And even if it's not rare, it's still somewhat difficult to get to or difficult to find, let alone to extract. Gold and silver are thought to be rare. And as a matter of fact, if they were actually common under the Earth's surface, the gravity on Earth would be different from what it is because they're pretty dense. It's the same thing with lead, actually. Lead is more common, and that's part of the reason we got the gravity that we have for a planet our size. These things just work that way. The rarity drives up the price. Otherwise, we could use sand for money. But then what would you be able to buy it for? You print enough money, it loses its value. That's just economy. And so, BGS has talked about this. There's no tree or factory that's just going to grow or kick out $100,000 men. Because if that's the case, then what is $100,000 going to buy you? The day that every man has $100,000 will not even buy you a bad used car that doesn't run. Because then $100,000 will be nothing. Someone's got to not have much. Matter of fact, most people got to not have much. I don't like it. I'm glad I have what I do. I don't think life is worth living if I had to go into poverty. Nonetheless, the fact remains that there's no abundance of wealth, because once something's abundant, it can no longer be wealth. And this is something that a lot of ladies are going to have to come to grips with and come to terms with. You need to behave your mother cuss word self to get a man at all. Not to get a rich man, not to get a tall man, not to get a man with swag, not to get a man that every other woman wants. To get a man, you need to behave. We're just in a situation that's unnatural, largely due to the way that men have been taught. That's all it is. And that's why I tell these ladies, you want to be a chameleon? You're going to be changing colors pretty soon. And now Real Femme Sapiens about to change colors because I'm grilling her. I'm a cooker. She's going to be dark even though she ain't black. We don't need you, Femme Sapien. Fit the guck up on out our space. If you feel entitled to a wealthy man, you're bought and sold. You sold yourself and he bought you. He's no longer your husband. He's your master. Congratulations, dummy. In a system that has no slavery and no concubinage, you made yourself one. Are you a human being, or are you something for sale? I'm not saying this because he takes care of your needs financially. I'm saying this because you think that you were entitled to not be poor because of how you behave. That doesn't work for anyone, man or woman. Most of the world would never even think of a deal like that because it's just not that available. How come you got ladies in the Philippines that know how to act? And they got feminism in the Philippines, but it's a different brand. It's not anti-male. It's not misandry. How come they know how to behave with that bad economy that the Philippines has? And you go into first world nations where they got a better standard of living, better than other women on the planet, and they feel entitled to now have it better than every other woman in that first world nation. And I'm not going to get into the body shaming. It's on the tip of my tongue, Allie. It really is, but I'm going to bite my tongue. You can thank Allah that I made Hajj even though you're Christian. So I'm going to watch myself. And it's not because, I mean, in actuality, your body isn't any of my business. I admit that, Allie. But based on what you have shown, if I was rich, hell, if I just had 100 grand, Saudi riyals, forget US dollars. If I just had 100 grand, you wouldn't make the cut. And that's why you're young. I've taken older MILF over you. And this leads me to my next point. Where Edward Anderson was in his stream, when he was talking about regarding the sexual politicking, you had these two ladies on there, and I think one was named Karen, the one that's a little bit older, and I forgot the name of the other one. And they were talking about their standards. What's going on, Lion? And what they want and how they were not going to tolerate certain things. They had exactly what it is that Allie feels she deserves right off the bat, or feels that women deserve. I can tell that based on what Allie was saying regarding certain men. So here's the thing. Yeah, I'm going. What's up, Joe? ¿Cómo está usted, señor? Yes, I'm going in on Real Femme Sapien. Exactly. Estoy atacándola. You don't sit up and tell men that some of them should just have to deal with only single moms when they're childless. You don't do that. I mean, there are men that don't know anything about women, but as I stated before, when women fail with men, there is a reason for that. Women are when women fail with men, they're doing something to fail because we're too simple, we're too easy. As I've stated, men only need to take accountability in the West for being too easy, especially black men, but Western men in general. When men fail with women, it can be because of things we simply don't know. They're the ones that are difficult, they're hard to figure out. And these ladies, as they've gotten into their age, they've not become much easier. First off, polygyny is something that women are into more than men are. And when I say polygyny, I don't mean just polyamory and not polyandry. Polygyny specifically means multiple wives. That is something women are more into than men. We're simple. We get a good wife, we'll stay with it. How do I know? I live somewhere where polygyny is legal, up to 4 at a time. Most men are married to one. Most of them don't want the headache of marrying the second one. When it's an option, they don't want the headache of marrying the second one. But what they can do is they can bounce. And they can marry a second one. And if their first one starts acting up and they say, well, I'd rather be with someone, but I'm not going to let the ladies know this. So what can they do? Marry a second one and divorce the first one. They can do that. And I tell men in this country, if you're going to marry and she's not going to treat you well, marry the second one first, then divorce the first one. I had to tell my wife that in America. You want me to sign a divorce paper? You sign this permission slip for me to marry a second wife in North Africa. You'll get your divorce when I've married and consummated the marriage with her. Bareback cream pie. Then you can have your divorce. Now, why did I do that? To be petty? No, I did that because I had to send my daughters a message. Do not imitate your mother. I don't say this out of hatred for her, for my ex. That's one reason why I keep my own identity a secret. I'm not trying to put her out there. So if I tell you what's going on, but I don't tell you who she is, then I didn't backbite. But you can still learn from the lesson and benefit, like my daughters needed to do. And also for my son to understand. even though that's not his mother. He has nothing against her. But it was also so that he'd understand. No woman gets to make my dad stay by himself. He can do it. That's the other thing. Men, you do have to learn how to stay by yourselves. But it's a powerful message to send to anyone that no one woman gets to determine that you're going to be celibate. Because once they determine that, once they know they can determine it, they're not going to respect you. It's sad to say, but it is true. Yes, Sir Anthony, women are more inclined to engage in it. Because if it's not a legal thing, they'll just chase after the same few men anyway. They still wind up competing, trying to get the same few men to commit to only them, but they'll wind up sharing these men anyway. And it ain't but less than 18% of these men. I think it's less than 13% actually, that these women out here sharing unknowingly. Because they don't seem to want more than 13%. And in the West, see, they say that women generally want 15% of the men that they see. Generally. But in the West, it's all the same 15% because they're in competition. In traditional societies, women are less inclined to be able to police each other's preferences. So in a traditional society, Sir Anthony could be in one woman's 15%. Jawad would be in another woman's 15%. Mr. Rodriguez would be in another woman's 15%. But in the West, it's all the same 15%. So you're either in that 15% of all women or you're in the 15% of none of them. And that's using 15 as some people's estimates. On dating sites, it's between 13 to 7. And it's the same few guys. So in the West, the women are actually more polygynous than they are in traditional societies. I've seen that firsthand too. And we'll sit up and try to explain it away. Well, married men just have more confidence. They'll walk up and approach me. Yeah, okay, well, they're already validated. You want the single guy that's not validated according to what you consider a man being validated. He's not validated to walk up, knowing subconsciously that you ain't gonna smell no other women on him because he's single, get shot down publicly, now putting him in the negative, because now other women will walk away from him. He doesn't have to walk up to them. That's what you're looking for. But then a married man walks up and you can smell other women on him, even if you don't know he's married, and you can't help yourself. That's why I call them wicked witches of the West. Femme sapien, check your nature. But I'm sorry, I got derailed. The next point I was going to bring up, I got derailed from that. You take these two women that are on Edward Allen Anderson's live stream. How do I know that they get worse as they get older? Simple. Gentlemen, I'm going to ask you something. Type in the maximum age of women you find attractive. Go ahead, gentlemen, type in the chat the maximum age of women you find attractive. What's going on, JBA, Mega Montana? Type in the chat the maximum age that you would find attractive in a woman. Hurry up, gentlemen, before I play some really bad music. The maximum age. Okay. All right, I got one answer. Keep going. Maximum age, gentlemen. Thank you, JC. Yes. I'm not sure if the sound came through. Maximum age. So if you typed in a minimum accidentally, go back and type in maximum. All right. Now even Kaya Nemo, who was a lady, said if I was a guy, it would be 26. Gentlemen, I actually prefer women closer to my age. This is very rare. I think that it's inherited genetically based on family history. Now, for those who have not heard me say this before, my brother's younger than his wife, my dad's younger than my mother, and my dad's grandfather's younger than his grandmother. Was, I should say. And when I was married in North Africa, she was a year older than me. A divorcee. I'll never forget. I'll never forget when first time I saw her completely as spouses see each other. And I said, goodness gracious. Just like I like her. So I'm one of the few, the rare. Double C said he prefers him. Double C, do you have any other men in your family that are like that? Now, there are men that may learn to prefer older women for other reasons. And I don't know about that scenario. I think I do think a lot of older black men were trained to prefer things that most men don't prefer in women. I do think that a lot of black men my age and even older were trained to prefer single moms, big women, older women. However, most, it's true, more fortune is right. Most men do prefer younger women. So in my regard, even when I came into this society and moved and lived here where most men would not do that, I still preferred women about my age. I was in my late 30s when I moved in. And here's the thing. For me, if a woman has passed that wall, but she still is in shape, looks good, I'm actually a very, very good and convenient deal for them. And it's not because I'm settling. It's actually convenient for me too. But like I said, this is rare. It's not very common. For me, introduce me to a 38-year-old MILF. And since I'm a dad, she can be a mom. I'm fair about that. But she can't sit up and say that I'm responsible for the babies. She can't do that because I can't put my kids on her, and wouldn't and shouldn't. Kids belong with the dad. If dad's dead, then the kids belong to her and to his relatives. Now, I would be willing to help out voluntarily, but you ain't gonna come tell me, okay, you take responsibility for it. I did do that once. Their dad was dead. But for me, you would think, okay, this would be convenient for both of us. Tattoos? Absolutely not, Jawad. That I would not do. Because I don't have them. Now, I might overlook them if it's one tattoo in a place where nobody else would see it and she used to not be Muslim, then I really wouldn't trip off of that. But for the most part, no. If she's always been Muslim or she's been Muslim her whole adult life, she better not have none. I look and say, what the hell are you doing? You either got them illegally as a kid before you were Muslim, or you were Muslim and you got them. But the point I'm making is that for these women, I'd be right up their alley because they could be right up mine. I don't need any more kids. So I'm not going to ask them for more. Don't ask me for any more either. I already got 3. They're my responsibility. Stay in shape. Treat me like I'm worth something because I'm going to do the same thing. I'm not going to treat you badly. I'm not going to treat you like you're less because you're older, because that's my preference anyway. I'm not going to blame you for getting older because we're all going to get older and it doesn't turn me off. So you think that this is a very convenient deal for both me and for them, don't you? Gentlemen, I'm going to tell you now. Ladies that are too old would sit up and say, oh, no. We're going to have kids. No, the F we not. My conditions are really not that difficult, actually. It's convenient for them that I'm not looking for more kids. Look at their age. Is it safe? It's going to harm them, probably harm the kid. I'm letting them off the hook for that. They don't need to go through that danger, the risk to their health, the risk to the baby's health. Convenient for me, convenient for them. They want to change it. Why? Because it's convenient for me. I say, look, what you're not going to do is you're not going to tell me no when I start pulling your panties off. If you're sick, fine. If you just can't for that particular week out the month, I get it. I wouldn't bother you anyway. But not barring other things, when I put them panties off, you don't tell me no. I wouldn't do that to you either unless I was injured or sick. You think that's convenient for them? They act as though it's not. Even when they like looking at me. I've had discussions with some that have been the ages that I like. And when they realize that I don't have a problem with their age, they start tripping. But I have no competition. Nobody else will be checking for them. So I know firsthand that they're actually only being difficult for the sake of being difficult, nothing else. You remove every other motive and they will remain difficult just for that sake alone. Because they could be in a position in which no man wants them except so few and so rare that we become like winning lottery tickets. And then they get that winning lottery ticket and they say, oh, you know what? I need to bring in some difficulty. This can't be too convenient for him. That's what's going on. And I've seen it firsthand. If they're older and they're nice to look at, they still got an attitude, not realizing that most men ain't gonna take them. Now, let's take a society that's somewhat more traditional, but not enough. Tunisia. My wife has a colleague from Tunisia who never got married. She's 36 or 37 now. She wants me to go look for her. And I've tried it before. I've actually been sent to talk to some guys that they don't know. Go talk to him, see how old he is, see if he's married. One time, the one from Philadelphia, not Tunisia, she's also not married, but she's at least been married. One time she said to me, hey, Baldy, go up and talk to that guy right there on her behalf. See how old he is, what he's doing if he's married. I was like, okay, fine. So I went up, spoke to him. We were in Medina at that time. It's one of these trips to Medina. Turned out he was a 24-year-old student in the University of Medina from Turkey. He spoke Arabic and he spoke Turkish. So we had the conversation in Arabic. And I said, look, we know someone is looking for marriage. Now, you said that you're a student. Are you open to marriage while studying? And the man said, nope, I'm focused on studying right now. I'm 24. I'm focused on studying. Marriage later. Now, that was responsible. I would have said to him, actually, I did say to him, well, if you're financially strapped, I understand, but your age is not the problem. However, he had not been married and he was not looking to, and he didn't know how old she was. I didn't tell him. But I told some other men, and every single time I talk to a man that is not married and ain't been married, they look at me and say, why would I marry someone that's that old and doesn't agree with polygyny? Can't stand to be a second wife. Who the hell does she think she is? I've had men from the West and from here and from other traditional societies say the same thing to me. Don't even ask me nothing like that. She's cute. She's just 36, 37, ain't been married before. And she's turned down proposals from other men. She used to live in Medina and work there. And there was a guy that wanted to marry her. She told us about it, but she couldn't bring herself to marry him. He wasn't her type. Last time we went to Medina, same trip in which I talked to the guy, found out he was from Turkey and 24 and studying. Same trip. Matter of fact, 2 days after that, she went to meet a former colleague of hers. He had been interested in marrying her a long time ago. She went to meet him. She came back. She said to us, I met him. We talked. I'm still not interested. Nothing's changed. I can't bring myself to marry this guy. And I started to tell her, that's fine, but understand you got to prepare to be by yourself. Because every man that has told me that they're willing to look at someone that's 36, All of them are already married. Every last one of them. Your age is not a problem as long as that man is already married to someone that is younger. Or at least he married her while she was younger. This is something that I have a hard time trying to get her to understand, and here's why. When I started to tell her this in the car, the sister from Philadelphia started cutting me off. Yeah, y'all like him young because y'all can control him. Excuse me? I didn't have a chance to even finish. And to avoid having an argument with my wife's friend in our car, I just put on some earphones and started listening to something else. Mr. A, thanks for the compliment. What's happening, A. LaRue? So Anthony, you're right, she is going to. And the reason I know is because right now, there's the only men that are willing to consider marrying her, as I stated, are already married. I don't have anything against her. As a matter of fact, if she were to say to my wife, you know what, I'll marry someone that's already married. Then my wife would probably not come to me now, but in a few years, she probably would. And will probably say, look, why don't you marry her? But my thing is this, what I would do is I would say, if she got wrinkles that she doesn't have, if she has wrinkles now that she didn't have back in 2022, I'm not doing it. Why not? I'm telling you to do. No, I don't care. Because you don't wait until you don't perceive competition to tell me to marry someone else. So then even then I'd have to be a jerk against my own interest just to send the message. But again, what I'm getting at here is that even in a semi-traditional but highly westernized society, this gets to be a problem. Now, in her country, polygyny is illegal. I know that. But you can still marry religiously and not in front of the court your second and third and fourth wife. She doesn't even want that. She insists that she has a husband all to herself, and he's got to have a job. Now, she did say, when I told her that the Turkish student was 24 and he was studying, she did say, you know what, tell him I'll pay. But then my wife tapped her on the arm as if to say, don't do that. And I checked my wife about it later on, like, why'd you tap on the arm? And my wife said she was joking, but she doesn't change her facial expression when she's joking. And I didn't want you to actually go and tell the guy this when my friend was just joking. Well, that's a good reason. She wasn't serious yet. You think there will never come a day when she is? She will eventually get serious and start saying, you know what, I'll pay the wedding and stuff. But that's what she's going to have to do. See, when women get to this wall, they got two options. An accountability commentary, shout out to him, has stated that when women get big, they got to pay what they weigh. And when they get old, they got to pay in gold. But the point is that when they pass a weight or an age threshold, now they got to pay to have somebody. Otherwise, they ain't going to have nobody. I mean, why you think they getting with Pookies? That's when they pay. The thing is that when they're young and they're not working for their own money, they don't mind paying Pookie. When they get older and they're working for their money, then they still pay Pookie, but they don't like it as much. You have to keep that in mind too. But that's universal. That does not stop in the West where they got to pay. They get older or bigger. And the funny thing is that in Arabic, old, when you apply old to age of a person or any organism, and you apply the word big, they're the same word. They simply say big in years to mean that somebody's old. So if I want to say I'm older than you, I would say the same thing as I'm bigger than you. The sentence is the same unless I add the phrase in years or in age. I'm bigger than you in age. He's smaller than me in age. So in Arabic, big is the same thing when it comes to age or weight. And that's why when I tell these guys in Arabic, hey, yo, check this out. She's big, she pays. In Arabic, it's one sentence. They're going to say, do you mean in size or in age? And I say, it doesn't matter, both. That's what we got to start saying to them. You pass up your youth and you pass up your health. You waste them on the guys that you want. That means there's something wrong with what you want. That means your tastes are a problem. You're allowed them, but there's still a problem. And you're going to pay. You're not just going to pay an inconvenience later. You're going to pay out of your pocket. You're going to pay out of your wallet. That's what you're going to do. Because you got too big. Meaning old or heavy or both. So yeah, gentlemen, we're going to have to start, we're going to have to be mercenaries about this. But we're also going to have to understand that when you strip away all of these motives that they have for their difficulty that they give and that they bring to the table, when you strip away all of these motives, you're still left with the difficulty. And that means that for them, the one you could not strip is how they feel about you. That's all that's left in the end. They're difficult for the sake of being difficult. That's why when they do get older, but they still look good, they can't make things any easier. All they're really doing is they're saying, because see, for most of you, it's about kids. Oftentimes, for many of you, when it comes down to why you prefer them young, which is natural and normal, you prefer them young because of looks and fertility. For me, fertility is not an issue anymore. Matter of fact, it's a minus, unless they're done having kids. But the point I'm making is that for most of you, that's what it is. And they know this. And so what they're saying is that since you like looks and fertility, then what you deserve is ugliness and infertility. That's what's in the back of their heads and later on in the front of their heads. And that's why they're taking most of you, most of us, and they're saying, you don't have a shot until we reach this, until we lose the youth and the fertility, or the youthful looks. It just so happens that that age is not a problem for me. And when they realize that, then they start giving me the same problems or replacing them with other problems to give me. Because in the end, they just want to give you some problems. That's why I tell you that it's war. You can't explain it with any other motive. I say that because they keep proving that it's a war. And it's a reproductive war at that. It really, if you take reproduction out of it, they'll still fight you on something, because let's say you're not ready to have them right now. That's when they concede and they want to keep it. Forget Roe versus Wade. Before the Supreme Court overturned it and left it up to the states to decide. They set up and they said, think about it. When you don't want, when you're not trying to conceive, they insist on it and they're going to keep it. If you're one of those guys that thinks that it's an accomplishment to conceive a child, then they don't want that. If you're one of those guys, then when you impregnate them, it really was an oops, an accident, unless, of course, they were going to do it to get your money. But what you notice is that every single thing you want, they don't want you to have. You want to start a family when you're 30? Nope. They're poking holes in the condom when you're 23. You want to have kids because you don't know when you're going to be able to have them? Nope. If they do conceive, they don't even tell you, and they'll pay for the abortion themselves. Because it's whatever you don't want, they want for you. What else describes that except war? I mean, that's what they want. But when they're actually acting on what they want, which is whatever you don't want, then that's war. It's just not military. It's sexual, it's reproductive, it's financial, it's psychological. That's why they're lying to their own sons about this. Lying to their own nephews, grandsons, younger brothers, male friends, not telling you what it actually takes to succeed with them. And even Melanie King, how old is she? 40 exactly? 41? Melanie King, nice to look at, had the nerve to tell a guy that was 36, women don't bring peace. I don't bring peace. And I don't see Melanie as a chameleon yet. That was a confession she made for that man's benefit. But the point is that she still can't bring herself to bring peace. She still has to get that software out of her mind too. That means she thinks that most men don't deserve peace. And when they find the men they think do deserve peace, they still later on lose enchantment with that man and decide he doesn't deserve peace either. Yes, Kaya, she said it. Now, she didn't say this as a brag, but she was trying to tell this man that women just don't bring peace. But what she didn't understand is that when they're desperate, they bring peace. But they bring peace as a last option, a last resort. That's war. You offer your enemy peace as a last resort. Simply because she still has her looks. So, gentlemen, that's why I tell you, get these passports. See, even Melanie does not want you getting passports and bouncing on the Wicked Witch of the West and leaving her alone. And she's probably not at war with you, but she still thinks that Western women deserve to have their interests met. They don't, not because they're somehow just born subhuman. No, they learn this stuff. The environment makes them this way. They socialize each other like this. They don't come out the womb as enemies. It's not that, but nonetheless, they don't deserve what they want because they insist on keeping away from you whatever you want and giving to you whatever you don't. Gentlemen, they don't believe that you like them old or that you like them thick, i.e. fat and overweight. They don't believe that you like them like that, because if they believed you liked them like that, they would find a way to stay young and they would stay skinny. They like to sit up and act dumb about what they think men like. Now, they don't realize what they can't get. But they love to sit up and act dumb about what they think men like. You know that they don't really believe that, because otherwise they would have turned around and become the opposite and then approached you. Accountability commentary brought up a good point too. I don't let white women off the hook, and not about to do it. But you know, one thing he did say was, Big Becky knows she's not a prize. She's not going to act like it. Big Keisha acts like she's still a prize. Whether she's big and heavy or just big and old, big in age. Doesn't matter. She doesn't really believe that she's a prize in comparison to the younger women. She doesn't actually think that when she stops and thinks about it. She may go through a period of a few years where she doesn't realize the difference because she's still getting sexually validated, and that's our fault as men. 48% Lion got herpes. 48%. That right there is something, because 48% of them got it. How come it's not 48% of men, black or otherwise? Because they're passing around the same few guys. Get it from one, give it to the other. And they don't have to like me or you, but they do have to be honest with themselves. And the other thing too is that they have to be honest with themselves and with us about that competitive instinct they have. The Wicked Witch of the West is not capable of determining for herself and only on her own who she's going to be with. They just don't want their dads to choose for them. That's all. They want their friends to choose. And they don't want really their friends to choose for them. They want their friends to just determine or just be open about who they like so that they can go after that same guy to win a competition. But they don't want their dads picking for them. And that's why it is that they can find a man unattractive individually, but because for whatever reason, maybe he's on the football team, for whatever reason, he done knocked down enough women and they can smell other women on him, or they've heard enough women talk about him. The ones that don't even think he's attractive will go for that same guy, just based on the validation of other women. But they're sitting up and saying that they should never have to go through the consequences for it either. They're telling you this. That's war. I should do things to you against your interests, trying to genetically eliminate you, but I should not deal with the consequences. That's a warlike attitude. No, Jawad. The chimpanzees shouldn't even have single mothers. You know why? The simps will work hard and spend. The chimpanzees are only like that because they've had enough women in their lives telling them that they're not worth the same thing that the women are. And they've even had guys that validated this viewpoint of women. You're not worth what they're worth. And you're not worth what we men are worth. See, the chimpanzees, one reason that men become simps is because, or they become depressed, or even become psychotic and criminally so in a sexual nature, is because when they fail with women, there are men and women standing around pointing fingers at them, telling them it's your fault. And so they believe it because they heard it enough times from enough people. You're the reason you're failing with women. You can have all your ducks in a row and still fail. You can have everything in a row that's voluntary and within your control and fail because it's something involuntary. And when you think about it, what heterosexual man is going to voluntarily leave out something that would help him succeed if he had it? Unless it's something immoral and he's a moral person. If height was within our control, what heterosexual man would choose to be short? Just as an example. You see, there was a time when I actually thought that I legitimately should have to lay out in the sun and get darker before I should get any results if I went out to a club. There was a time I believed that. I was young. But there was a time I believed that because of what I'd been told. So in all honesty, no, the simp should not. And this is what we can do. And I'm glad you all brought this up. The simps, well, they're going to wind up with them anyway. They're going to wind up used. But what we should do is we should be willing to tell these, a simp that you know, we should be willing to tell these simps, look, you're not less valuable than they are. And you're not less than other men. And you're not even less than the men that they actually want right off the bat. Maybe, maybe not. But the fact that these ladies like other men more than they like you doesn't automatically mean you're some kind of inferior male. Get that out your head. You do not need to simp because it won't work anyway. Now that's educating the ones that don't really know. But once you know that once you know that a man is a simp, because it's hard to know. And then you know that he's been told why he ain't got to be no simp. Then every man that knows this should ostracize this guy. If he's your colleague, you just work with him because you have to. But what if you're the one that owns a company? Give him a pay cut and don't promote him. No raises, no promotions. As a matter of fact, a pay cut. If you can find a reason to fire him, you fire him. Because they need to be financially strapped if they're going to be simps. Just because we know they're simps and they don't take the education. That's what we need to do. Right off the bat. This snitch is a simp. And I told him why he doesn't need to simp, and he's still simping. Okay, maybe you don't know that a guy's a simp. That's different. You don't have to. But when simps realize that once we know they're simps and they were told better, they're shut out and they can't even make any money from any new guy they didn't know from before. Now what? Guys are going to have a choice. Either they can't simp or they're going to have to hide it. And if they got to hide it, eventually other men, younger men, are going to come up and say, you know what? My uncle was a simp, but he had to hide it. Otherwise he would have never gotten hired to do anything. I'd rather just go ahead and not be a simp and not lose my money. Because what is a simp going to be good for if not his money? You take away any motive that these single moms would have to use these guys. That's what you do. Because these single moms are not getting with poor simps. They're getting with the simps that are released in the middle. They may not be able to find a wealthy one, but they'll get with a poor simp that's at least, they'll get with a simp that's in the middle. They're going to get with a simp that's got the most money they can find. Start financially depriving these simps. Don't tell them about ways to make money. Give them bad investment advice. Make them broke as much as you possibly can. And then that's going to yank out the rug from underneath them. Not only that, but a lot of men are already doing this, yanking the rugs out from underneath them. We're now telling childless black men, why should you get with a single mom and you ain't got no kids yourself? She's going to put them kids on you. You need to have some of your own you can put off on her too. Make it even. Why not? Oh, you can't get no kids because you can't get nobody pregnant because no childless woman is willing to be with you. And that's also when you tell these guys that might be simps or just guys that think they're failures with women. That's when you tell them that ain't your fault. You might be corny, you might be goofy, you might have a neck beard, but that's not necessarily the reason you're failing. Because you see, if you remove these things that the women don't like from all the men, they're still going to narrow it down to 15%. The only question is going to be, are they going to be in it like traditional women and have their own 15%, which is fine. It balances out anyway. Or are they going to be like the Western women and all go after only the same 15% and keep on having the same 15% kids? Because keep in mind, understand, you get several generations of this. Let's say that it's 15%. If it's 15%, do you know what 0.15 times 0.15 is? If it's 2 generations of women only getting busy with and draining the nuts of 15% of men, 2 generations, that's okay. The 15% is the same thing as the decimal point 15. If memory serves me right, that's 0.0225% of the men that will father the 3rd generation. Now, what if it's 7? That's 0.07. 0.07. I'm sorry, 15%. I'm sorry. I apologize. 15% times 15% is 2.25. So this means that that means that only 2.25% of the male DNA from the grandfather's generation goes into the grandkids. That's what that means. If it's the same 15% that all women want in a society, and that's all they're willing to bed and match with. When it's 7, it becomes 0.49 by the grandkids' generation. 0.49 of the grandfather's male DNA that makes it down to the grandchildren's generation, or the grandfather's generation's male DNA that makes it down to the grandchild's generation. 0.49. Do you think, and understand, women ain't going through this same filtering. Women are not going through the filtering that we see. Upwards of 80% of women are going to have children, married or not. So that means that the grandmother's generation's female DNA, 64% of that will be down into the grandchild. 64% of theirs. Now, Ren's 722, you're absolutely right. A lot of unknown incest has been going on. This is known because Dwight Hayes, and shout out to him if he ever hears this. Assalamu alaikum, Dwight. Dwight Hayes mentioned to me that a doctor told him that the afflictions that are usually associated with incest, some proven to be from incest, some just associated and studies don't prove it yet, have been on the rise in the Black community. Now, let's be honest. We don't like incest. Even Keisha does not think it's okay to get busy with her cousin, even a fourth cousin. Incest is one thing that we still find distasteful, no matter how ratchet. So that being said, that means that it must be involuntary if it's going on at all. But you've got afflictions that are associated with it, and they're on a rise in our population, and that means it's going on. And I know from a cousin of mine, he dated his own cousin, didn't know that they were cousins, but what he found out was that not only was she his first cousin, he found out that genetically she was his half sister because his and her dad were identical twins. So genetically, it was worse than what he found out that it actually was. Kayai, to answer your question, I do think that there's a way to arrange them. If you arrange the marriages where the father or some male guardian of the lady does have to approve of the man, and she also has to approve of the man she's marrying, that does increase the chances. So in like an arranged marriage, but with her approval still. Because I'm not, for one, the book is against it. We're not supposed to marry a woman against her will. If she can't accept a good man, she just needs to stay by herself. But I do believe that involvement of the families is necessary. Now, here's the thing. I want to tell you something about the male guardian, Kayai Nemo. The male guardian, from my understanding, has to be fair, not only to the lady to whom he's related, his daughter or his sister or his niece, whoever whichever woman on whose behalf he's vetting the man that wants to marry her, or the man she wants to marry, because she has that right too. But if he finds out that she's not qualified for him, he needs to tell that man. Absolutely. Now, let's say that she fornicated and he knows that she fornicated, but the guy that wants to marry her and she wants to marry doesn't know this. He should not necessarily go to the guy and say, look, she fornicated and you didn't. For all we know, you're a virgin, but she's not, and she never got married before. He doesn't have to say that and should not. But what he should do is he should go to the guy and say, I don't approve, and it ain't even your fault. I may love her. She's my relative. She's my daughter, my cousin, my niece, my sister. Yeah, I do love her, but there's something about you that makes her not qualified, and something about her that makes her not qualified. The mismatch is to your disfavor, not hers. I'm not disapproving of you for her. I'm disapproving of her for you. That's what he should do if he's fair. The one time I was a wali for a relative of mine, a Muslima, about to get married, I told her and the guy, I'll vet this man, but as best I can. But understand, if I find out that you don't qualify for him, I got to tell him that, and I got to tell you too. I'm not just there to be a barrier so that he can't get to you. If you're bad for him, I got to put a stop to it for that reason too. And she understood, and he understood. So the thing is that we got to put a stop to this ease and convenience that we've been giving. We've been making things a little bit too easy. I've been saying not even a little bit. We've been making things entirely too easy. Western men in general, but Western black men especially. And as I stated, we need to put a stop to that. And part of putting a stop to that means that we're going to have to start isolating the simps we can identify. Doesn't mean you go digging all up in somebody's business to prove that they are or are not a simp. But what it does mean is that we got to start isolating them. once we can find out that they're simps. And tell others, look, I saw the proof due to simping. That's how I know. Don't loan them no money. Don't hire them to do anything, especially unless it's just minimum wage. Pretty much financially boycott these guys, especially since our financial power apparently is increasing over time. We'll have to start doing that. It's a necessity, because otherwise, it's like Danielle George said, as long as these women have any options at all, like Lion is saying, it's got to be lockout. Because if these ladies have any options at all, and I'm talking about the wicked witches of the West, if they have any options, they are going to continue acting this way. Nothing's going to stop them until they don't have any options. And maybe I'm part of the problem. Maybe because I actually prefer women that are close to my age. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe just that availability to them is what messes things up. However, I don't necessarily drive a bargain that it's terribly easy. It's just a bargain that's very fair. I cream pie your cervix when I feel like it. You also come to me when you feel like it. I'll pay the cost, but I am the boss. And my terms are generally pretty fair. Don't bother me about kids, not having any more. And it's not convenient for you and healthy for you at your age anyway, so you should be glad. I expect you to leave if I get disrespectful. I'm going to do the same thing if you get disrespectful. Stuff like that. Just this fairness, maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe the fact that they have some options, because I'm not the only guy like this. Like I said, we're rare. But maybe because men are still approaching women in the West, maybe that's why it is that they still perceive these options even more than what they actually have. But we're going to have to start. Matter of fact, approaching them is stupid. We got to stop that mess. So I'm going to leave on this note. Number one, we got to start telling brothers when brothers aren't macking, we got to start telling them it ain't even your fault. I mean, granted, there may be a bunch of things about women you don't know. You may be corny, goofy to them, but how's that your fault if they don't tell you? We got to stop this idea of telling men that it's their fault when they fail with women. No, it's women's fault when they fail with men. We're the ones that are easy. We've been too easy. What we need to do is start telling these guys, you're making things too easy. You approached her and you don't know her? Do you know anyone that does know her? Okay, well, you were willing to get to know her, but that's time that you would have been wasting. So you went up to this, you cold approach someone you don't know. Why would you do that? You the one with the money. Even if she's got more than you, she'll never spend it on you, but you'll spend on her. So why would you go and cold approach her? You the prize. She's the one that stands to benefit. That's how we have to start acting. That's how we have to start treating it. So wait a minute, you cold approached her. So what you get out of that? Okay, so all you did was make it harder for the next man. That's the one thing we got to start doing. Stop telling these guys that it's their fault when they try and they fail. Instead, start telling them it's only their fault because they tried and they made it too easy. Because what this does is that this leads to scenarios in which men feel like failures, but they were set up to be failures. And they do snap. Elliot Rodger was wrong. Don't get it twisted. That man was wrong for what he did. I can tell you that if somebody had set up and said to him, hey man, look. Your failure with them is not even your fault, especially considering all that you have. It's not your fault. They don't tell you what they want when they're young. They don't tell the truth about it. When you get it, they just find something else to want. They move the goalpost. How is it your fault? You could not have succeeded because the game was rigged. Don't blame yourself. If you do have to live alone for the rest of your life, it may not be natural, it's not easy, but it's not your fault. At least we would take the burden of the guilty conscience off of these men. Because most men have to live with the burden of a guilty conscience because they think it's their fault they're failing, and the unnatural difficulty of being by themselves all their lives. It's not natural. You have to learn it anyway, and most of us wind up learning it by force, but it's not natural. But on top of that, we got men walking around here with guilty consciences thinking they screwed up. And we got to stop that mess. And the second thing we need to start doing is when ladies start going in on a man, calling him any kind of incel or beta, anything like that, defend that man and go in on that broad. What is she going to do? Give him the playbook so that he'll actually know everything that the women aren't telling? All the secrets they're keeping? The fact that they're keeping secrets is warlike enough. How do you keep from your supposed ally the very secrets they need to know to be good allies to you? That's war. These ladies are going against their own nature just to make it difficult for you. So we need to start defending these men when the ladies start jumping on them, calling them beta and incel. You can disagree with what a man said, because men going to say stuff we disagree with, but we need to be on code. Because you saw, if you look at that live stream, you go back and you check that live stream out that Edward Allen Anderson just had, you will see these two ladies probably don't even know each other. And if you throw in the high value men that both of them want, they probably fight over it. But when it comes to us normal men, those two are on code. Each one of them could say the stupidest thing and the other one would back her up. You got one of them talking about he needs to be financially loaded, but he also needs to be monogamous. No, he needs to be chaste, not monogynous. That's different. Men are not supposed to commit adultery. That's never been an idea until Greek and Roman culture, not Christianity, Greek and Roman culture, that men were supposed to only have one wife. And even in those cultures, they had concubines and girlfriends, or they just cheated. That's in their culture. It's not Christianity. Show me where Jesus said that it was no longer allowed for men to have more than one wife. He didn't even limit the number to 4. That's something that's only binding on the Muslims. We're the only ones limited to 4 wives. She had the nerve to sit up and say that he needs to be all these things, tick all these boxes, no one else. Now, if that man had listened, and he probably did. Well, no, he didn't. If that man had listened, you think she would have thrown it back on him on demand? I've never known a woman that'll tell him a husband. I've known one. And that's because she lives where a man can still marry more than one. But I've known one that would say, I want to be the only one, but she doesn't tell her husband no. And I even had to tell the husband, man, don't you ever move back to the West. Because if y'all leave this jurisdiction, then she might start saying no. Stay here. So that being said, that's the note that I want to end on. We're going to have to start locking out these simps. Absolutely. And we're going to have to stop participating in and start defending men from this notion that it's his fault when he fails with women. Unless, of course, women were just brutally honest with him all his life and told him. In which case he probably would admit, I chose these moral things, even though they were going to not be attracted to women because they're moral, and I just wasn't going to compromise morality to get some draws. Now, if that's the case, that's fine. And even then, you don't blame him for that. You only blame him if he's crying and complaining. But you get the idea. Start defending these men when they get attacked, and stop and don't participate in this. Actually, what we need to do is, after this live stream, we all need to start telling these men that have failed with these ladies. If you did not know everything that they actually want, not what they say they want, but unless you knew the secrets about what they actually want and how they lied about it, you can't be blamed for failing with them. And that's if you live in your mother's basement and got a neck beard. You can't be blamed for failing with them. Absolutely not. And take these simps, because simps are some of the main ones that'll turn around and point the finger at a man that is failing with women and say, yeah, you're failing with women because of this, that, and the other. But then they're not succeeding either because they're simps. And understand this. Here's another thing to understand, gentlemen. The reason we need to lock out simps from all financial opportunities and socializing with us once we know it's a simp, the reason we need to do this is because ladies have already locked these simps out the drawers. And some women will tell you, I don't like simps. You can't support your way into my panties. Move out the way so I can see the dude I'm actually going to wrap my legs around. Some women are coming out and saying this. And the thing is that when you show respect, some of you, just by showing respect to ladies and being friendly, they think you simping. And they'll tell you, or they'll tell someone else, oh, he's a simp, he's trying too hard. That actually happened. That happened in my case only because in a Facebook group, and I'll give you the name of it. I think it's called Nephew's Corner. In a Facebook group, most of them are Somali, but Muslims that are black in general can join in. And so if you can infiltrate the group, feel free. Well, a lot of the ladies were writing stories to Nephew, the administrator of the page. And they would write the stories anonymously to him, and he would post the stories, of course, anonymously. But they were confessing to all kinds of things. Sometimes things they did, other times things that somebody in the family did. But all of these things were things that would cause scandals in the Somali community if they were not anonymous. One lady said, it wasn't her, but she said, my mother actually gave birth. My dad is back in Somalia. My mother in the States gave birth and gave the baby up for adoption. And it kills me that I got this little brother out there that is going to grow up without us. And all these ladies stepped in. Now, the lady that wrote the story, and Nephew published it, the lady that wrote the story was innocent. She was lamenting. She was suffering. She wanted counseling because it was eating her up that her little baby brother was out there in some foster home waiting to be adopted and picked up. Was never going to know his family because his mother cheated on her husband because her husband was out of the country. And she said, I know that she had needs and all, but dang, divorce dad if it's like that. The women jumped in the comments section and said, yeah, see, these men, they leave us over here and they go back home to Somalia to work, and then they get mad when we cheat. Most of them don't even cheat. What are they talking about? So I sat up and I said, ladies, the stuff you all are saying, come on now. But that's all I said. There was another guy, and I know he was African-American. One, because he doesn't know this, but I met him before. He's also from the Gulf Coast. But number two, this guy, he wrote something. It was about a short paragraph, about 5 sentences, telling these ladies that they had no business sitting up and defending adultery, and telling them that if the man was going back to work, that's because that's where he could make the money. And that she had the option to go back home to live with that husband where he was making the money. She just wanted to stay in the States. And even if she was a good mother to her kids through that man, she still cheated, and now she had a baby out there. And this guy was saying that the lady who wrote the story was right to be worried about her brother because of the way the system works. And then one of the things he said was, y'all are Muslim, you're supposed to be better than this. If you're not going to even allow polygyny by husbands, you cannot sit here and defend adultery by a wife. That was the last sentence he said. I remember that. I talked to him later on. That man said that one of the ladies actually called him on Facebook Messenger and said to him, look, they're about to kick me out this group because I invited you. And it seems like you're trying too hard, trying to get a Somali woman or trying to impress a Somali woman. That man was not trying to impress them. And when he told me this, I went to the group and I just left. I didn't say anything, but by the time I got to the group to leave, he had already written a letter to them and cussed them smooth the F out. He even said, you think I said what I said because I'm trying to impress you? Why would I try to impress you if you justify adultery, but you can't tolerate polygyny? Or y'all think I'm simping, huh? I don't think you understand. If I could find a way to get you, all of you that were not born in the West, kicked out and deported, I would have done it. He was going in on them, telling them, I'm not trying to impress none of you. I don't live there with you. So I saw where he cussed them out because it was still the most recent post in that group when I logged in just to leave the group. But seeing as there were Somalis, most of them, a few African Americans in there, I actually thought that if a Somali woman lived in the West, she was going to be corrupted. That's what I thought. And I almost did not marry my current wife. Not because I assumed anything bad about her, but because of fear, because of what I'd already seen. I actually, one of the things that was necessary for me to even consider her was that I found out she was not born in the West and did not grow up the majority of her childhood in the West. And that was when I said, oh, okay, all right. She just doesn't have much of an accent when she speaks English. That's why I thought she probably had grown up stateside, but no, she did not. Okay, cool, all right. And I got lucky. I'm fortunate in that regard. But I'm saying this to say that, see, they thought this was simping because they've had guys simp for them before. And these ladies in that group, mind you, these are Muslims whose parents don't play that mess. And I also got a homeboy, I think he's from Washington, D.C., African-American fella. He married an Eritrean Muslima, but she grew up in the West. And she trifling and low down dirty. Her parents ain't like that. But she is. But since they raised her in the West, they didn't feel like they could truly rein her in when she was growing up. So he married her. And after a baby, now they're going through a divorce. And he done found out that she's been communicating with an ex-boyfriend anyway. Ex-boyfriend, she ain't supposed to have one of those. All his exes are from before he was Muslim. So what's this about? Why? Because she had the option. These are ladies who come from families that come from societies and cultures that don't play this mess. One generation growing up in the West, and this is what they do. Gentlemen, imagine if we cut these options off. Because if these ladies whose parents don't play that still manage to learn the game, who you think is teaching them? It ain't their parents. It ain't mama. It ain't auntie and grandma. And if they still willing to play these same games, would you think that Bonquisha, who's 8 generations in the West, no religion at all, is going to do? What you think she's doing? She got 7 generations behind her of a matriarchy telling them all kinds of things to do. And this is another thing that my mother told me. They don't just discuss things that are going to benefit them. They discuss things to do just so that you don't have it too easy and you ain't too happy. If that ain't war, I don't know what is. When I tell you it's war, I tell you it's war because of things that other ladies have told me, including my own mother. Things they told me recently and things they told me 2 decades ago. And that's why what we need to do, and I'm sorry I'm taking so long to tell y'all this, Assalamu alaikum, Jaws. That's why what we need to do is not just don't simp. We need to shut out the simps. Educate them. Make sure you don't just point the finger at a guy. You a simp. Hey, man, I need to holler at you. And if you don't take this advice, we're going to shut you out. I don't mean that. But when you find out someone is simping for real, you overheard a conversation, however you found out. You find out someone's simping, pull them off to the side, and you say, listen, man, you did this right in front of me, or you said this to your wife right in front of me. So that's the only reason I'm mentioning this. But understand this, man. You are not low value. If you working minimum wage, got a neck beard, you're not of some subhuman value. Do not play the subservient role, because if you do, she's going to cheat anyway. You're lucky then if she leaves. Don't undervalue yourself. And don't even talk to them about self-improvement until they get the first message. But if they insist on simping, that's when you say to them, okay, now we're shutting you out. You let the other guys know how you know that he's a simp. No more invitations. We got to start doing that. It's important because, see, understand, leave, SYSBM, passports, that's true. But these are long-term goals. What you must do in the meantime and in the short term is what I'm mentioning. We're going to get to the passports anyway. I did. But until enough of us get the cuss word out of here, this is what we got to do so that those who are stuck behind don't have it quite as bad. That's why it's necessary. Don't just stop the simping, shut the simps out. Because understand, the ladies are sitting up here as a hyenocracy and as a sisterhood, shutting out and socially killing women that not just like you, but even just don't make things difficult on you and are trying to be fair. You look at Allie, Real Femme Sapien, and what she said. The hell do you think would happen if she started to say to the ladies, no more calling these men betas or incels? I was wondering, she kind of blew up. And she went past Chantel Simone and Shay Sade, who seemed to really mean well for us. She passed them up. And then not just because she's not black and appeals to a bigger audience. No. One, she does reach out to more ladies. That's true. She talked to a Muslima from across the pond. I listened to that whole thing last Sunday, 5 days ago, when I was driving back to the city from which I live. Listened to the whole thing, and she seemed reasonable. A whole live stream she did, talking to a Muslima named Naima Robert from across the pond from you guys in the UK. Sounded reasonable the whole time. Kayai Nemo and Goat JR had to send to me the link and the timestamp so I could hear her get rude with, call a man rude for asking a question, interrupt him, drop him so he couldn't ask the question. And two of them had to be witnesses to me to tell me that she actually did say that there are guys who, childless, should only have single mothers. That's the woman who, despite all of the good behavior she's extolling in women, which is good, that is a woman that still wants to be able to fall back on the option of becoming a single mom and finding some man. What happens if there's no one that has any money she can fall back on? That means she's going to really have to cooperate to keep that husband. That's what that means. And if she's trying to come up with a way or backup plan, then that means she does not plan on really cooperating with that husband to keep him, or she feels that she married a man that might leave her even if she submits and cooperates. One of those two. It's one of those two. And frankly, I don't fib a guck which one of the two it is. We need to dry that well up. And I'm gonna be honest, gentlemen, if ever in your life if you have ever bragged about how you bit gitches, and no, I didn't cuss just now, or how you pit gussy, I didn't cuss just now either. If you've ever done this in your life, even at age 15, to another guy, then you have contributed to the phenomena of simping. Because one of the most powerful things you can tell a simp so that they don't simp is the same thing as one of the most powerful things you can tell a young boy so that he does not grow into a simp. If you fail with these women, it's not automatically your fault. Most powerful thing we can say, and maybe that's what we need to start doing. I ain't been live in a while. Y'all been patient with me for almost 2 hours. Thank you. Maybe my next live stream will be about that. Maybe that's what it'll be about. The importance of telling men that it ain't their fault. As I stated, we need to make sure, and this is another thing you tell these simps, and tell young boys so they don't become simps. The only thing that Western men, especially Western black men, have done wrong collectively, not individually, but collectively, is be too mother cuss word easy. Simping is something that we've collectively done. And that's because we listened to them songs back in the 90s like this one. And we enjoyed them for entertainment, but then we didn't analyze them. We weren't analytical thinkers. And it actually got into the subconscious. Whole time with these ladies this is around the same time that MC Lyte sang about I gotta get a roughneck. Hold up. I thought MC Lyte was rapping about self-destruction. Wasn't she one of those in that rap, self-destruction against the violence? 2 or 3 years later, gotta get a roughneck. Man, shuck that fit. That's N-word culture. And what she is saying was, I uphold it because I'm going to sexually reward it. That's what she was getting at. I'd rather listen to people rap and sing about fornication than that stuff. Why? Fornication is a normal human weakness, and that's if you don't marry. And I don't support that either. But the thing is that you start saying, I'm only going to sexually reward roughneckism, violence. I will even book fights for you if I got doubts about your ability to handle business. I will set tests up, but I'm not going to set up a test you can intelligently pass. No, I'm going to set us up for a robbery. And if you don't jump in front of that gun and make that ninja shoot you, you failed. You see, we didn't critically think about what we were listening to back then. And now we're outnumbered by simps. And a lot of us have been simps at some point because we didn't know we were simping. So now we got this big old job ahead of us right now of waking up the ones that we find that will listen and shutting out the ones we find that won't listen. Now, I don't know how many guys in the States right now with simps in your everyday real world life as you walk around from work to home to shopping and everything else. I don't know how many guys you come across and pass up that are simps, how many are red pill aware, and how many are just somewhere in the middle. I don't know what the percentages are. I haven't lived there in 8.5 years now. I can say that I think you guys may be doing a good job because last time I was there in 2021, seemed to me like Kevin Samuels going mainstream woke a lot of people up. What's happening, Yada? What's going on, Gold Professor? So it seems to me like more and more are waking up. Seems like it, but it ain't fast enough. I want a situation in which nobody feels comfortable saying in front of my son, oh, I want to leave my boyfriend because he's too loving. I want to date that rapper, but he got a girlfriend. I need to figure out how to take him from her. Oh, yeah, somebody sat there and said this in front of my son. Someone that's nice to my son She wasn't talking to him when she said it, but she knows him. She was talking to somebody else. And she's been polite to my son, been respectful, but felt comfortable saying something like this to him. I'm looking for the day that that doesn't work anymore. I'm looking for the day that she got to be just as careful about what she not only says, but thinks, as we both know that we would have to be in front of women. That being said, thanks a million, y'all. Y'all really been patient with me, and I appreciate that. Appreciate y'all rocking with me. As always, I hope this benefited you, and I hope it helped out. Black heart, black mind, blackout. Assalamu alaikum. And black heterosexual, non-select male power, just because they don't like it. And black patriarchy until extinction or judgment day.